Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 671 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, and it is a bit of a grayish day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, hey. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Did not sleep very well last night and has decided to go back to bed to get some rest. So hopefully he is successful in that, and we wish him well. And yeah, so it's just you and me today, kids and cubs. I'm gonna just adjust over here a little bit. Sorry, because I have noticed that I'm very red. There we go. That's much better. All right. Let's see what we've got for you today. We've got definitely a good show for you today. But before we do that, we have to thank our founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. And since we're all here, let's take a little look into the magic mirror and see which kits and cubs have joined us this morning here in the chat. I see that we have a Kit Cat. I like saying that, Kit Cat. Kit Cat W in the chat. Kit Saucy. Good morning, dear one. Kit Elaine. Hello, my love. It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's see what else. Kit Wishful. Hey, nice to see you. I think I've been having a difficulty following the chat every now and then on certain shows with a little more production work or note reading, but I don't think I've seen you for a while. So if that is indeed the case, welcome back. It's nice to see you. Kit Linda M. Hello, dear one. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Who else do we have here? Kit Hugh. Hey, my friend. Bonjour, mon ami, mon frère. Nice to see you. Who else do we have? And Kit Uncovered here this morning. I think I may have done that a little fast and early because not a lot of people had a chance to pipe in and say hello. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Not sure if I already said that, but hey, if I did, they are so nice. They deserve to be mentioned twice. uh, how's your mental health today, kids and cubs? Mine is okay. I'm still rough. I'm still rough. I will be a little honest. But I'm uh, willing myself to be chipper, I guess I would say. Uh, but yes, I'm going through a bit of a rougher period. Uh, not devastating, right? Just um, I'm frustrated. Let's put it that way with certain things. And we're we're working on projects around here, and and as you know, we're in renovations and stuff, and things aren't necessarily going as smoothly, and so. Uh, in that and in many other areas, I'm just a little bit frustrated. I feel like I'm sometimes telling people specifically what I want and what I need or what I'm looking for, and nobody's actually really hearing me, and it gets really frustrating having to ask for things several times before somebody notices. So it's yeah, I'm just a little frustrated in certain things. However, when it comes to spending time with you, of course, no frustration at all because it's a joy and a pleasure. Also, a privilege. So, I am very happy to be here and to be spending time with you. We have, yes, exactly, Kid Saucy. Renovations never go smoothly. There is always something. Yep, indeed, indeed. And the next bit that we're looking to do involves having surveyors come and to do property line stuff. And uh, the neighbor next door um, tends to like to encroach a little. So we're also looking at the prospect of when it comes time to do the renovation itself, for which we need the property line to be able to make sure that what we're going to do is far enough from the property line to meet bylaws. It's going to result in them having to make some changes on their side, and it is not going to be particularly well received because our neighbors on that side do not like us for some reason. We don't know what we did. They just do not like us. We got along really great with them, and then one day, uh, we stumbled upon some social media that was theirs, where they were talking to some of their friends about us that they do not know that we've seen, and referred to us as the perverts. So clearly, something happened at some point, and I don't know what it is. But they have beef with us, and we have absolutely no beef with them. But it's going to make this. I'm looking upon this renovation with dread because I know it's just they're going to fly off the handle if there's anything that says that the property line requires them to do something, to move something or whatnot. They will freak right out. So, also, that's kind of weighing heavily on my mind and not particularly fun. But hey, the project has to get done. So, it's inevitable that this is going to happen. So that's it's kind of sucky, but hey, it's life. You got to get through it. So yeah, I know. Anyway, yeah, yeah, get saucy. Sounds like they're bigots. I don't know about bigots. Maybe just uh, to try to, if I'm going to be kind, just haven't been exposed to enough of us to know better, I would say. All right. But hey, that's a totally different thing. Today, kids and cubs, there are some things to discuss. First of all, tonight, game six, Oilers and Panthers. Go Oilers. Hoping that this is a better performance. Hoping that Mr. Grizzly is right, that the series will go to seven, because if that is indeed the case, then that means the Oilers are guaranteed to win tonight, right? Because there can be no game seven without an Oilers win tonight. So hopefully, Mr. Grizzly's uh, rather pretty good take on this, the series so far, the whole Stanley Cup series, except for you know, uh, thinking Ottawa in 6 or 7 rather than Toronto in the first round. Um, you know, he's kind of had his finger on the pulse. So fingers crossed that he is correct all the way to the end on this one, because it would sure be nice to bring uh, Lord Stanley's Cup back home to Canada. Also in the news, so that's at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, 6 p.m. local time. And I will be looking to see if in the moss pit, that person there all dressed in silver with the sign "Believe" is still there, as I pretty much expect them to be. Um, Also, a little bit of news. We've been following a little bit the measles outbreak in Ontario and Alberta, and there was a bit of a milestone yesterday. Unfortunately, there were 53 new cases of measles declared just yesterday in the province of Alberta. So this is getting bad, and the total has now surpassed 900. But when you think of 953 in one day, that's 1/18th of all cases yesterday, declared yesterday. So it sounds like things are accelerating, and perhaps that multi-million dollar awareness campaign that they keep bragging about is not as effective as it could be, and maybe they need to do more. But of course, Danielle Smith is not really pro-vaccine now, is she? Like in any way, shape, or form. So, very little chance that that's going to happen. I have a feeling, they put some money in some information campaign, but none of the leaders want to be seen or feel that they can be seen pushing for it because well, that would make them very mad, make their base very mad. So, this is what we get: 53 new cases of measles. People getting sick, and they just don't seem to care. I don't. It's not humane, and it's definitely not leadership. And only not what's that thing that politicians always say that the first responsibility of a government is to keep their people safe? Hmm, that doesn't seem to be going on there. Some people appear to have lost the plot in Alberta. Other quick news before we get into it: it seems that Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership review in January. It was supposed to be in March, but he asked for it to be a little early. I wonder why. Doesn't want a lot of time to go by. Maybe, perhaps. But yes, it's happening. And as expected, kits and cubs, because you'd have to be living under a rock not to know it, Trump did leave the G7 early. So, as predicted, uh, not as predicted, it wasn't in a huff. So, that's kind of good. Uh, the reason why, however, is because it looks like shit's about to get real out in Iran. And, well, that's not good at all. So hopefully we'll get a little bit into these types of things here over the course of the show. Um, Karina Gould, if you're wondering what the heck happened to her, because she was left out of cabinet and left out of a whole bunch of stuff. Well, it seems that where she has landed is a pretty decent place. She has been chosen to lead the House of Commons Finance Committee, which will be responsible for examining the federal government's proposed tax cuts, right? The GST tax cut to homes, the 1% tax cut on income, as well as the permanent reversal of consumer carbon pricing. So it's going to be a pretty high profile committee where she's going to be able to gain some economic credentials and add those to her bona fides or bona fides, depending how you pronounce it. So, not necessarily a bad place to land. And good, good for her that she'll be doing that. She will definitely get some profile as a result of doing that. And of course, the House of Commons Finance Committee will then be back in action, I'm sure, when the House returns in the fall with the budget and all of that kind of stuff, which will again give her a chance for a decent amount of profile. So, yeah, uh, she it's not a cabinet position, of course, and all that kind of stuff, but she wasn't just left out. And of this is one of the first, uh, you know, they formed the committee itself, a standing committee that determines the membership in all the other committees, and this seems to be the first of the other committees, or at least the major ones, that has been formed with membership declared, and the membership of the committee voted Karina Gould to be the chair there. So, yeah, good stuff for her, and hopefully she'll be able to make the most of it. Okay, so those are a few things, and some of them we'll be able to develop later on in the show, but I wanted to start with the main story, of course, which is the G7. Now, kids and cubs, a lot of things happened yesterday, and we'll go through some stuff here. Um, but overall, it was pretty much as good a day for Canada as one could expect. and one could hope for, which is absolutely uh, not what anybody expected coming into it. Everybody thought for sure that there would be stuff, and there was an attempt in some way at stuff, but nothing really. Um, I say nothing really egregious. I mean, depends where you look at it, right? I mean, he stepped off the plane with a "Make America Great" baseball cap, and went down the line, I guess, and shook the governor general's hand, and didn't remove the cap. And I mean, when you show up at a G7, when everybody is not too keen on "Make America Great Again," and you're wearing that cap, you're pretty much coming down that plane and flipping the bird to everyone else there, right? Pretty much. He could have just taken Melania's "I don't care, do you" jacket and put it on, and would have been the same damn thing. Despite the fact that he came in as he is, marketing and brash and flipping the bird to everyone in a whole bunch of ways, um, it seems that Prime Minister Carney is very, 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 very good at not taking the bait. And it might be serving him rather well. Throughout the course of the day, it seems that Prime Minister Carney rather masterfully stick-handled possibility of stuff erupting as a result of his presence at the meeting. So that's already a win. And like I said, he's gone early, which has everybody else breathing a sigh of relief because today is outreach day. And with Zelensky being there, well, there'll be no big confrontation there. And with Cyril Ramaphosa, the leader of South Africa, and we know that he had a White House ambush moment. Well, there's not going to be one of those there as well. So already better. And of course, Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, is here, and they'll be able to have that discussion about defense spending and all that kind of stuff, and whatever they're going to do to prepare for that summit that's coming later this summer. Without somebody around the table and a whole entourage banging on it, saying you got to get to 5%, you got to get to 5%. Um, Now it seems that there is a push to 5%. It's divided in an interesting way that I haven't quite fully comprehended, but it's 3.5% on, I guess, like hard defense spending and about 1.5% on certain things like infrastructure that could help shore up stuff, which, you know, that could be a lot of things in that sense. So it would seem that there's some analysis that's going on that's saying that the 1.5 portion of it would actually probably be way much easier to achieve uh, than going from 2 to 3.5 on the actual defense portion of it. Again, my that's about the extent of my knowledge of it based on what I've been hearing and reading so far, and I haven't been able to go more into that part to see what that really means. But that kind of discussion will be able to happen without somebody sniping from the I can't necessarily say from the sidelines here because I mean it is G7 and the United States is definitely the core part of the G7. But just uh, repeatedly trying to put sticks in the spokes to try and trip stuff up. Let's put it that way. So a bit of a sigh of relief in that sense that today is going to go smoothly and that first day didn't get upended. For the rest, we will see, kids and cubs. But to kick things off, Mark Carney started with saying that nostalgia is not a strategy. In his opening statement to a roundtable of G7 members, quote, "We will have open, frank discussions over the course of the next 2 days. We might not agree on absolutely every issue, but where we will cooperate, we will make an enormous difference," he said. Then the leaders then started a working session focused on the global economic outlook. Carney is set to meet with the president of the European Council and the president of the European Commission was set to meet them on Monday, followed by meetings with his counterparts from Japan, France, and Italy. So that's all that took place a little bit yesterday after those main meeting. Um, it would appear that there was a meeting, one on one, of course, with the prime minister and the president of the United States. And the prime minister office had an official readout of that meeting and was released. So I have that for you. This is the Canadian side of it and what their impressions were. So this is what the Prime Minister reported back to us when he had. Let's see if I can make that just a little bigger for those watching live. There we go. How does that look? Perfect. From the Prime Minister of Canada. Today, the Prime Minister Mark Carney met with the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, at the 2025 G7 Leaders Summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. Prime Minister Carney and President Trump discussed immediate trade pressures and priorities for each country's workers and businesses and shared updates on key issues raised in negotiations on a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the US. To that end, the leaders agreed to pursue negotiations towards a deal within the coming 30 days. The Prime Minister and the President also underscored collaboration on further shared priorities at the summit, such as critical minerals, gun and drug smuggling, illegal drugs, and border security. The leaders also discussed possible areas of cooperation on defense. That's probably the Golden Dome thing. The leaders agreed to remain in regular contact at the G7 Leaders Summit and in the weeks ahead, including as NATO leaders convene next week. So, you know, nothing particularly exciting in that statement, but nothing, of course, controversial or damaging as well, which is not bad. We'll take that. Um, on its side, the White House was asked to confirm its understanding of what the leaders agreed to, but it chose not to respond. Of course, that's probably strategic again. They don't want to give anything. But it also might be because the White House has got their hands full with a couple of other things at the moment. So, and not particularly the highest priority. Following their one on one meeting, Trump and Carney sat down with a wider group that included Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. Carney also met one on one with other G7 leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba Shiguru, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. LeBlanc and Kristen Hillman, who's Canada's ambassador to the United States, told a news conference that talks with their American counterparts accelerated in recent weeks. So the key word that's been buzzing around here is accelerated. LeBlanc said both countries have agreed to keep details of those discussions private and to reconvene before the end of the week, which is kind of interesting because if things are not particularly advancing or if there isn't things that are materially meeting with progress, there's usually no reason to schedule another meeting this close to the last time people met. So when the ambassador says things are accelerating, that probably that in conjunction with the fact that there is another meeting and it is announced to discuss these things that are allegedly accelerating would give the sense or add extra credence or weight to the fact that this is indeed true, that something is happening. Quote, the important thing is that we collectively think we're making progress in coming to a deal that would be in the economic interests of both countries, but we're not there yet, he said. That's LeBlanc. Hillman said that she's had a sense that the Americans, quote, are understanding us better as Canadian officials call for all the tariffs to be removed. Quote, we have a president who is very convinced of the policy that he has around tariffs in order to achieve some of his policy goals, she said. We are very convinced that applying that policy to Canada is actually detrimental to his overall goals, and we're trying to get there with him and his officials. So basically, it seems to me that when I read that, what I hear is that in these meetings, Donald is going, well, I want tariffs, I want tariffs, I want tariffs. And Canadians are going, Donald, 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 why do you want the tariffs? Well, I want this for America. Okay, if you want that for America, that's not how you go about it. This is how you go about it. And we can help. So, if, again, as I had maybe suspected a while ago, that the fact that we have a global banker who really knows his stuff and Trump is kind of screwing up the economy. Maybe the global banker giving Trump a couple of ideas about how he could better reach some of his financial goals for restructuring the US economy while sliding in some stuff that makes it such that he doesn't upend the entire world and particularly us, and getting Trump to say, yeah, maybe you have an idea there. Maybe. And this team around them, maybe a couple of people in the business community, and they say, you know what, that actually is maybe a better idea. Because, and and Mark Carney going, hey, you know what? You can say it was your idea. I'll be good with that. Think of what a genius he will look like. Maybe even a stable genius. Sorry. I couldn't resist. So maybe that is the tone and the tenor of the discussions that they're trying to show him that maybe there's an even better, more tremendous way that will have more huge results for the president, and offering, say, hey, you can take credit for this. Think of how brilliant you'll look in the world's eyes if you manage to do this while doing that and without doing this. So, a little pumping of the tires, that type of stuff. That could be what's going on. Hillman and LeBlanc didn't answer repeated questions about whether Trump again raised the idea of making Canada a U.S. state. And that's probably wise because nothing good can come of that, particularly if things seem to be going well between Canada and the United States. Why would you answer that question? That creates an opportunity for the president to go squirrel and then focus on that. Just like, not the time. So, yesterday, I'm going to bring this to you. I hope that there will not be too many stops, but I will try to keep an eye on it. This was an interview with Canada's ambassador to the United States on power and politics yesterday, Kirsten Hillman, sorry, got to get that right. Kristen is not the same thing as Kirsten. Kirsten Hillman, and she's talking about the acceleration of the discussions and all that kind of stuff. Of course, a lot of this is in ambassador speak, right? So she's not going to go very far and not going to confirm a lot of things and not make a lot of statements. But if you know how to read between the lines, she's saying a decent amount of things here that could be interesting and confirming some things. So take a listen to this, and you'll have an idea of what sort of the vibe was in the room between them. All right, just make sure I've got everything set here. There we go. Yep. All right.
Today's in-person meeting between Mark Carney and President Donald Trump was the second since Carney became Prime Minister. Canadian officials say they've agreed to accelerate negotiations toward a trade deal and that they're already setting up another meeting for later this week. So, what happened between the leaders today? Kirsten Hillman is Canada's ambassador to the United States, and she joins me now. Ambassador, thank you so much for squeezing us in on a busy day. I'm hoping you can provide a few more details about where things have gone. You said today you have felt a sense of acceleration in these talks, but you're in the middle of discussions, not at the end of discussions. Have the two countries moved appreciably closer to getting a deal here?
Well, I think that every time we meet, we move a little bit closer. And I know that's probably not terribly satisfactory when we're trying to explain to Canadians the steps towards a date and be able to say by date certain, we think we're going to be there. Unfortunately, I'm not able to, be that precise with you. But what I can say is we had a good meeting. So the Prime Minister and the President had a private meeting before the rest of the delegation came in. Then the delegation came in. We spent an awful lot of time. We talked about other things, but we spent a lot of time talking about trade and tariffs and economic partnership and making sure that we are, working in a way that supports both of our economies. And we were asked by the leaders to try to accelerate the pace of our discussions. So that, I think, is really good. It led to immediately a meeting just very shortly thereafter with Ambassador Greer and Minister LeBon and I and a few others. And that's a very positive thing. And we're going to meet again before the end of the week. So that is an acceleration. Right. I think we're trying to get to the right place. It's very hard to quantify for your viewers in sort of real terms because there's a lot under discussion.
Right. And look, in every negotiation, nothing is done until everything is done, especially in a conversation like this. But I just wonder about a comment the president made after his meeting with the prime minister this morning. He said a deal is achievable within days or weeks. Does Canada share the president's optimism there on that timeline?
All right. Of course, that was going to happen. I do not know why they feel they need an ad this early into the show. But again, so you see the ambassador making the point that, of course, these responses will seem unsatisfactory for people who would want a very clear yes or no, things are going great, things are not, all that kind of stuff. We've made progress on specific thing. We've signed this deal, we've signed that deal. But that's not what we're getting here. But it doesn't mean that things aren't happening. And because, of course, we're talking about rather comprehensive discussions with regards to defense and economic security, that there would be the discussions would be very broad and wide-ranging. So it's very hard to have specifics at this particular time. All right, let's continue on.
Optimism there on that timeline?
Actually, you know what? Let me back it up there to just for the benefit of our listeners and for instant recall that what the last question that Mr. Cochrane asked the ambassador.
Right. And look, in every negotiation, nothing is done until everything is done, especially in a conversation like this. But I just wonder about a comment the president made after his meeting with the prime minister this morning. He said a deal is achievable within days or weeks. Does Canada share the president's optimism there on that timeline?
Look, I hope so. It would be great. If we could have a deal within days or weeks, then that would be fantastic. And I think based on the way in which our economies are intertwined, based upon the value proposition that we pose for the U.S. in terms of the objectives that it has for its country, for its economy, it is doable. But they have to also, put the Canadian side back into a place where we are not being harmed by their tariff policy, where we have some stability and certainty for the future, as much as that is possible in this very complicated global world that we're in. So I hope so. That will require a fairly hearty discussion on both sides of the table. But it's great to hear that the president thinks so, and I think that's a really important message for his team as well.
I wonder if you can help me understand something the president said today, and I know you're limited in what details you can share, Ambassador, but he said he's a tariff person. He said the prime minister has something that's more complex. I mean, more complex, is that simply getting back to like a trade agreement, which is obviously a more complex thing than across the board tariffs? Is that what we're talking about here in terms of the two different approaches? Help us understand that if you can.
Yeah, and there is really only a certain level of detail I can get into. I think the best way to maybe explain as much as I can is that the president feels that tariffs are the best tool for a variety of economic objectives that he has, for creating barriers into the United States to encourage domestic production, for raising revenues, for some of the economic policies, including tax cuts and other things that he is seeking to achieve for his own economy, and to sort of leverage policy changes in other countries. And so he likes tariffs. He feels that they are very effective. He's always been a strong tariff proponent. He was when he was first in office, when we were renegotiating the NAFTA, and he continues to have that perspective. Canada is a country that, understands the values of tariffs, but we are also at our core a free trading nation. We believe that the Canadian economy is stronger, more robust, more resilient when we have broad partnerships, secure supply chains, and in strategic areas, self-sufficiency and self-assurance, but also that working with partners makes us more competitive. So and in broad strokes, I think that's sort of the philosophical difference. But I think our task is to find a path to achieve the ultimate goals of both of our countries, despite maybe these differences in preferences with respect to policy tools. And we'll see if we can do it. Okay. I believe that, there's work to be done that we can get done.
I ordered 200 hand-forged knives to my dorm room and built it with
overloading the thing with ads today. So again, in this section here, you hear the ambassador talking specifically. Some key words mentioned here. There's stability and predictability, right? Because they're trying to get to that type of place where we can know what the hell is going on. Now, there's a lot of people that are thinking that 10% is essentially the new zero, and that's probably where we're going to end up. But that wasn't the Canadian position coming in. Right, the Canadian position really is that all of these tariffs need to be gone. Whether that happens, whether or not we get to all of the tariffs, or whether or not we get to a point where we're just going to have to accept 10% because they will not budge, whatever it is, it still has to make progress. At the moment, Canada is still the country that has the best access, despite all the brouhaha going on, to the U.S. market. But, if 10 is going to be the new zero, I've heard discussions that would suggest that would still be enough to, over time, decimate the auto industry, but it could be an amount that would give enough time, if we're nimble enough, to change certain manufacturing to focus more on defense and particularly infrastructure and stuff over here, so that at least the jobs were not completely lost if we have to switch out. Of course, there's also talk, and this is probably further down the line, but when we had Flavio Volpe here and Mr. Grizzly and he were talking about the Aero Auto project, that vehicle, as we had mentioned, has been shown at a couple of auto shows, and there seems to be some chatter behind the scenes about, what if Canadians got back into producing Canadian cars, and that could be one, so there could be a market for it. But that wouldn't be like a 1 or 2 year thing, right? That might be a several year still thing. But that type of chatter is going on. So if retooling to serve other purposes, if indeed Trump is insistent on killing the auto industry in Canada. Listen, these are not enviable positions that we are in any way, shape, or form. But if we can't get to zero all the way across the board, and if it's basically 10, if 10 is the new zero, as people are saying, it could give us some breathing room for the rather quick adaptation that we are going to have to do in this case. All right. Let's see what else the ambassador had to say.
Maybe these differences in preferences with respect to policy tools. And we'll see if we can do it. Okay. I believe that, there's work to be done that we can get done.
Right. Well, and look, you, the Prime Minister, Minister LeBlanc, have all made it very clear the goal is a reset tariffs back to where they were before all of this, to get the tariffs off the table. But the President said he still believes in them, that he's a tariff person. So is there a world where Canada and the U.S. can get a deal that gets rid of the tariffs on us and President Trump can still have his tariffs with other countries? I mean, is that the landing point here as you maybe see it?
Look, our goal is to get the tariffs off for Canada. We will be pushing to get the tariffs off for Canada. We are going to try and find a path with the U.S. so that we can get to that place. I am not, I don't think that we're interested in really talking about another perspective. We understand that the tariffs are a policy that the president finds useful and that he may well find effective with other countries. We are working very, very hard to make the case that using those tariffs with us is not going to be as productive for the goals that he has than some other choices and avenues that we might be able to pursue.
And look, Ambassador, maybe this treads into the you can't discuss what was said in the room, but do you think based on today and the acceleration that you're feeling and the being told to accelerate talks, as Minister LeBlanc described it, do you think you're on a path where you can get there? That there can be a world where a president who likes tariffs agrees not to put tariffs on Canada?
I sure hope so. I sure hope so. I think we have all the arguments and all the data and all of the support, both in Canada and the U.S., that should help us get there. Whether we will get there or not, that remains to be seen. But I believe that we have an excellent case to make, and I'm looking to all Canadians, private sector, government at all levels across the country to help us continue making that case.
And are you getting that sense of compromise and willingness from across the table? I mean, are you getting a sense that the Americans are willing to move on that as these talks go on?
I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. All right. Look, Ambassador, I know time is tight, but you're going to be meeting with Jameson Greer, the USTR, and others later this week, the U.S. Trade Representative. Are those talks going to be in Washington? I mean, what do you have? What clarity do you have at this point on what the next steps?
We're still working that out. We're working that out. We're going to meet later this week again. We had a good meeting again today. We may have some, more exchanges and conversations before we meet. So the exact form of that is not yet decided. We're kind of trying to work that out.
Okay, Ambassador Kirsten Hillman, I know you got to run. Thank you for making time for us on a busy day like today.
All right, kits and cubs. That there was the interview with the ambassador. And of course, you can hear a couple of things. There's a couple of moments there where the first part in there stating that she had very, very good confidence that we did have a good case and all the data points and all that. And she should, because as we've mentioned several times on the show, and this has been confirmed through various clips and stuff like that we've shown, Canada has some of the best international trade negotiators on the planet, if not the very best. So we show up prepared. Of that, there is no doubt. But you'll notice that when asked, are you getting that sense from across the table? Well, the answer was, a little more. That type of answer was either no, or it's like pulling teeth, right? So without saying that, but that was a pretty sharp and blunt. Let's not talk about that. Which gives the impression that Canadians are probably frustrated in certain ways, but trying not to show it because it's so damn freaking obvious. Why can't you see it? But of course, then again, there's no one more blind than those who are unwilling to see. Right? So that there might be a little bit of that type of dynamic going on. Before we continue with that, I do see that a couple of other kits have dropped in since I did my magic mirror a little early. So let's also say good morning to Kit Jillian, who's here, and Kit Frankie Swanky. Hello, my friend. Kit Breen's here. Kit Tom. Kit Christian. Bonjour, mon frère. Nice to see you here. Kit Mohan and family. Hello. Kit Uncover, of course, that we mentioned before. Kit Ryan. Hey, good morning to you. And let's see, who else do we have? We had one person here I see that on whom Saucy has already used the wrench. Kit Mel C, the original Beaver Lodge Spice Girl. Charlie's Girl, 67. I think that's a new name for us. If that is the case, welcome to the Beaver Lodge. Make yourself comfortable. Let's see, who else do we have? Kit Cassie joining us. Hello, dear Wynn. It's so nice to see you in the mornings again. Who else do we have? Sliding in. Miss. Hello, dear one. Thank you so much. And thank you for having my back with the neighbors there in the chat. Love that very much. A rainbow party in the backyard would definitely be nice. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to use speakers because that's against the bylaw. Any amplified sound is a no-no here where we are. Kit Nona Carol, Double D. Hello, nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Kit PNC Bio is with us. Kit Gordon McKay is with us. I believe that's a new name or newish name for us. So thank you for joining the Dam Fam this morning for the conversation. Kit Hyper T 007, hello. Nice. Hello. Good morning to you. Lovely to see you with us. That's a Kit Hyper T 007 is a local who I've had the pleasure to meet. So, well, bump into, I should say, which is very nice. Kit G. Easton, that seems to be a new name for us. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge. And let's see, what else do we have? My God, you are really, really active today already in the chat, Kits and Cubs. This is wonderful. I'm very much looking forward to read all of this when I'm able to do that. All right. If there are any more of you and I've missed you, I am so sorry. But on with the show. This is it. All right. Yes. So that's what's sort of gone on in the room. Don't worry. I know that you're probably all wondering about that initial moment there with Trump and Carney, and I will get to it. I had originally put the ambassador's thoughts first before I knew that Mr. Grizzly was not going to be able to join us today. So to make sure that he would be able to do that, we wouldn't have had the stops and then get back to the moment between Mr. Carney and Mr. Trump, because that was on CPAC, and with that, we don't have to worry about the breaks. The meetings, of course, continue, and there was other stuff going on. European Union officials say that Canada is likely to sign a defense procurement agreement with the continent when Mark Carney goes to Brussels later this month. Carney is set to visit Brussels on June 23rd for the Canada-EU summit, where he will meet with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa. Both of them are here for the G7. Carney's office confirmed his attendance in a formal summary of his brief discussion Monday with Costa and von der Leyen. At the G7 summit in Alberta, both EU leaders said Canada's involvement in Europe's defense architecture is set to deepen. Von der Leyen said Canada will sign a security and defense partnership with the EU, which will allow it to join a European loan program for joint defense projects. So we're going to be getting some access to European capital at some favorable rates, which is very interesting for us. Quote, Canada is a key partner in our transatlantic alliance, and we are looking forward with great interest for the upcoming summit between the European Union and Canada that we will be hosting in 2 weeks in Brussels. That's Mr. Costa who said that. This is also a moment where we can strengthen Canada's role in Europe's rapidly evolving defense architecture, said von der Leyen. The $150 billion Euro program is called Security Action for Europe, or SAFE. It's part of the Rearm Europe initiative that Carney has said he wants Canada to join as he moves to shore up national defense. Von der Leyen said the SAFE program can be joined by Europe's very close allies, friends, and partners, and the deal this month will allow for negotiations on bringing Canada into the program. Carney's office said next week's visits to Brussels come as both sides are, quote, engaged to expand the Canada-EU free trade relationship, defend rules-based trade, and deepen cooperation on shared defense and security challenges. Canadian officials have sought to reduce their reliance on American gear, particularly since the President of the United States mused in March about selling allies, quote, toned down versions of fighter planes with fewer capabilities than U.S. aircraft. In March, the European Commission unveiled Rearm Europe, a plan that would earmark up to the equivalent of 1.25 trillion Canadian dollars for defense over 5 years. It's a loan program that allows member states to take on more debt to spend on defense without triggering EU restrictions on members with excessive deficits. Despite the President of the United States' departure from yesterday, the G7 summit will continue today. As per the official program, today's proceedings are slated to kick off with an official welcome of invited leaders, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and other non-G7 VIP guests, which will be followed by, quote, a working breakfast session on, quote, a strong and sovereign Ukraine, as well as a, quote, closing session to wind down the G7 summit itself. Later this afternoon, the remaining G7 leaders will meet with outreach leaders for a working lunch that will focus on energy security, after which Prime Minister Carney, in his capacity as chair, will hold a closing press conference. As yet, Prime Minister Carney's office has provided no additional details on his itinerary, but it will likely include more one-on-one meetings with individual leaders, including Modi. Now, as you know, sometimes when these events happen, certain premiers decide that they want to comment on certain things in order to get their names in the press because this event is not about them, right? It's meetings between nations and they are not invited. So Doug Ford decided to do that yesterday and was particularly unhelpful. Particularly unhelpful. From CTV, and this is Joshua Freeman, Doug Ford says U.S. governors agree Trump's comments on Canada were insulting. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says his U.S. counterparts are concerned about a drop in tourism from Canadians, telling him that President Donald Trump's comments about making Canada the 51st state were insulting to Canada. Quote, well, as we talk to the governors, a lot of governors are saying it's insulting. It's insulting to your closest friend and allies, Ford told CNN in an interview Monday morning. We love the U.S. I love the U.S. Yeah, especially he sees himself as a Republican and he wants an invitation to the Trump Thanksgiving family potluck. Canadians love Americans. There's one person that is causing this issue, and that's President Trump. Hopefully, I'll take another avenue and start mending fences because right now, as the governors told us here, they've seen a drastic decline in Canadian tourism. Now, as true as this may be, this is unhelpful, particularly at this time. Things are going well between the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of the United States. We do not need Doug Ford looking for the spotlight, bringing criticism from the United States, allegedly, back here to mention it at this particular moment when people are watching Canadian news, particularly. What good can come of that than create, again, a moment or a possibility for someone to say, hey, you are using our own people against us. Boom, let's punch down on you more. Sometimes you gotta learn when to be quiet. Doug Ford, you talk too damn much. You're not helping. It's a love fest in the room, and there's a mixture of everyone in the room, and we just want to get things back on track and move forward, Ford said. The meeting was attended by Maine Governor Janet Mills, Vermont Governor Phil Scott, Rhode Island Governor Daniel McKee, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, and New York Governor Kathy Hochul, all of them probably Democrats. So what they have to say is particularly not of much interest to Donald Trump, as we know. Along with Ford, the Canadian delegation included Newfoundland and Labrador Premier John Hogan, Prince Edward Island Premier Rob Lance, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt, and Quebec Economic Minister Christine Fréchette. The Boston meeting between the governors and premiers came the same day as Prime Minister Mark Carney meets with Trump on the sidelines of a G7 summit in Alberta. Ford expressed confidence in Carney ahead of the meeting, but said he needs to send a strong message that Trump's tariffs are hurting both countries. You don't need to tell him that, Doug. Just saying, quote, I have all the confidence in the world in Prime Minister Carney, Ford said. He'll be obviously very polite being the host, but he also has to be stern. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. He reiterated, quote, that it makes no sense to attack one of your strongest friends and allies. Yes, I know. We have to send the message to the rest of the world. They're certainly here now in these two countries and come and invest in the US and Canada. I like how Ford says that. We have to send the message that it doesn't make sense. Like that's not what we have. That's not like we have. It's not like what we've been doing the entire time. He's just talking to make noise. Then, of course, it's on a bit of a side note, but we'll talk about it because it's very important. When it comes to his response to the trade war, namely the controversial special economic zones for resource extraction in Bill 5, Ford was asked whether his plan strips away First Nations rights in favor of economic growth. Quote, there's a few First Nations that are making noise, but the vast majority you watch, though, they'll be full steam ahead, and we're going to work collaboratively with our First Nations communities, Ford said. They're not your First Nations communities, Doug. They do not belong to you. So yeah, Doug Ford is setting himself up for some bad stuff with the way he's handling Bill 5 here. But yes, Doug Ford decided that, that this would be a good time to host this type of meeting between premiers and governors, and then come out during the G7 to try and, he's just trying to pull focus here. Doug Ford is not happy that the moment is not about him, so he's trying to create a manner to insert himself. But this type of rhetoric at this particular time, listen, this type of rhetoric at some other points, if things get a little sticky or stuff like that, and you got to like give a little elbow here or that type of thing, fine, that could work. But when things are already going well and already going smoothly and going better than anyone could probably hope for, shut your mouth. Not every thought needs to be expressed, especially as soon as you have it. Sometimes you can have a thought and say, you know what, this needs to be expressed, but maybe there's a more strategic time to say it. So yeah, Doug Ford being a little bit unhelpful here. Let's keep going. Now, the moment that you've probably been waiting for. Prime Minister Carney and Donald Trump going to those meetings had that type of moment that is often had during which they enter the room and the cameras are there and they have a little bit of conversation beforehand before they go into the actual meeting and 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 there's some questions from the press and that kind of stuff. This was an interesting one because there's a lot of things that happen here in this. And again, you have to be able to read diplomacy to know what's going on here because, for example, the person that came in to the chat to express himself on whom Kit Saucy had to use the wrench was that typical thing that we keep on hearing from the anti-everything side. Oh yeah, elbows up, eh? That sure looks like elbows down and on your knees. Yes, the Prime Minister did flatter the President. Yes, the Prime Minister did not take moments to contradict misinformation. Because what's the point? Yes, the Prime Minister did have some seemingly nice to say about the President. But each one of those was particularly calculated. So let's take a look at this moment and I'll explain why all these people yelling, it's elbows down, just can't read a room and what's going on. Okay. This is going to be good. This is the moment that, of course, like a lot of people watching yesterday morning and holding their breath, right? Because, as we know, like Felicia just got off the plane after a weekend that was particularly bruising for him and not good for his ego. So, yeah, we expected him to be in a fine, foul mood and right pissed. And he had a couple things to gripe about. He did. But as we mentioned yesterday, I was hoping that Team Canada had greeted him with enough effusive praise and made sure he had all the little things that he needed in order to be in the best mood possible for the next day. So let's see here how that moment went. Now we'll be stopping and starting here during this to give a sense of at some key moments. But this here is going to be interesting because there's actually a lot going on. For those listening at home, there's not much going on right now, but it will start soon.
We good to go? All right, thank you. Mr. President. Welcome to Canada.
Thank you very much.
It's a great honor. Happy birthday. A few days short.
A little bit.
A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. Happy birthday to the U.S. military as well, 250th, and this is the 50th birthday, if you will, of the G7. This marks the 50th birthday of the G7, and the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and so.
All right. So we're in the first 52 seconds here, and people already started to lose their minds when this happened. So, first of all, happy birthday. Oh, you thought of me. Happy birthday to the U.S. military, because that whole thing was allegedly about that and not about him. So, oh, yes, you could see him nod, right? And then the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, which had people losing their minds, because the whole point of this G7 and not having a communique is because we are devoid of U.S. leadership. But if you listen to that sentence, it's right up there with, you were a transformational president. Yes, the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership. And since the G7 doesn't really have it at the moment, it's really a G6 plus one. Prime Minister did not lie, did he? Or you could also look at it as the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and with the type of leadership the U.S. has been showing, it definitely has motivated the agenda and the activities of the rest of the G7. It sounds like a compliment. But ask a queen. It's shade. It's shade. Diplomatically delivered and wrapped in candy. So it tastes good, but it's shade. It is definitely shade. That would be sort of like going to a movie premiere and saying, girl, I love your dress. Isn't that the same dress you wore at the last movie premiere? Shade. All right. Let's keep on going.
And your personal leadership of the United States, many issues, geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership. Very much looking forward to the meeting, and grateful to have you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it, and we've developed a very good relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things. And we have a whole group of people, some traders and some other people. I see my top economy people. But we have a very talented group of people, and you do too, and I know they work together very well. I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8.
Okay, so before we get into that part here, you've got a good team. They work together very well. You can hear the tone as well. Why, thank you, Mark. All that praise about his leadership. But when you're talking about his leadership and juxtapose it to what everybody else except for him are at the G7 meeting to do, that is his leadership. Now, so Donald Trump, appropriately flattered, returns some compliments. Interesting. And now we go into him as I think it was Glenn McGregor described it as spraying. So he mentions here that, as you said, the G7 was once the G8, and who was the G8 person that was asked to leave or declared not welcome anymore? Oh, yeah, we're going to be talking about this guy, aren't we? Okay.
Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago. But it didn't work out that way. But It used to be the G8, and now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table, so it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war.
All right. So you will notice here that if you're a Canadian, that the President of the United States came here to spray but did not do his homework. Because when Vladimir Putin was asked, not only by Obama and allegedly Trudeau, to leave, that wasn't the case. It was an all of G7 thing. He was told to go. But also 2014, Justin Trudeau was not prime minister then. Justin Trudeau became prime minister in October 2015. Stephen Harper, currently chair of the IDU, was the one who made that decision on behalf of Canada. So, Trudeau, and of course, right, not Justin Trudeau, former Prime Minister Trudeau, but some guy named Trudeau. And you could see at that moment that Prime Minister Carney's face turns towards the camera and sort of looks at it almost like Curb Your Enthusiasm style. You know, that as soon as he said that, I imagine like this, Carney looking at the camera and then the camera zooming in on Carney as we hear the kind of music, as you hear Trump keep on droning in the background, and as it gets more silent as the music rises. But yeah, that was one of those, can you believe that? Sort of looking at the camera moments from like TV shows like that, Curb Your Enthusiasm or The Office or something. So yeah, you know that Prime Minister Carney has noticed, but he says, you know what? I'm just going to let that one slide across the plate because there's nothing to be gained by correcting the president on this particular point. But Trudeau is still living in his head rent-free, and I have no idea why he's here to do Putin's propaganda again. That Putin should be in the invited back, and of course, making the case again that there would have been no war if he had been president at the time. But this is also the same guy who, during the last election campaign, promised that he would end the war in Ukraine in a day, or was it even like between the time that he was elected and was inaugurated that would be over? And well, here we still are. So, Boo Boo Kitty, you can tell yourself that all you want, but nobody's buying it. We all know that there would have been war if you were president, because the whole reason why you left, which was after this, has to do with potentially you getting involved in some way in another war when you ran on being the big peacemaker who would get the United States out of wars. Which gives the impression that somebody may have your gonads in a jar. And you're not as tough, or actually leading in this, what's about to develop, as you claim you are, would like to present yourself to the world as being. So, yeah, that might be another reason why he's working so hard here to spray. But as we have come to learn, sometimes it's best just to let him talk, because the sheer and utter stupidity of the things that he says, especially if he gets to say them without being interrupted, just lands. So right now, this is going very, very well for us. I'm sure he thinks that this is going well for him. It's not. It's not. So let's keep on going and see what happens next. Because normally this guy is always itching for some type of fight or argument. And I'm not getting that sense there. His voice is calm. almost like he's the guy that keeps on talking about it, and people not having stamina and people not having energy. This I would describe as low energy, which is kind of interesting because those are two words that he never, ever, ever, ever wants associated with him. But this is pretty low energy. And even in there, as he's saying, that it's too bad that Putin isn't there. When asked, well, um, I think it maybe not. It would have been a good idea to have him at this time because too much water has gone over the bridge. So, interesting. Interesting. Again, just little tiny cues here throughout it that let you know that there's other stuff going on. Kid Hugh, if you're trying to call me, this is not a good idea. I'm doing the show. I don't know why you're trying to call me. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. That threw me for a bit. Notice, not a lot of energy, not a lot of vim, not a lot of commitment to the lines that he's saying. Asked us exactly about potential involvement in the war. I don't want to talk about that. That's probably a sign that he's being dragged into it, maybe even more than he would like. Like I said, what's going to be going on with that? All the signs seem to be there that it's going to be one hot, big, sticky mess. And I shudder a little bit to think of how this is going to go down. But I'm not getting the feeling that this is going to be good. Oh, I know. He was probably calling me to let me know that the image was gone. Of course. Now it makes sense. The light just went on. I'm a little slow on the uptake. Every now and then, kits and cuffs. Oh, man. No audio either. Is that true? There was no audio either from it? Okay, well, if that's the case, I am so sorry, kits and cubs. I will go back then. I'm so sorry. I thought that if that the audio would have gone through if the image had not. Anyway, okay. So let's go back on that a bit and hold on here. I have no idea where we are here in the chat. Okay, this is tariff stuff. So it was a little bit after that. Fortunately,
Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
And what would you say, in your opinion, what would it take for the U.S. to get involved in this conflict militarily?
I don't want to talk about that.
As you mentioned Putin, do you think that he should have a seat at the G7 today, that it should be the G8?
I'm not saying he should at this point, because too much water's gone over the dam, maybe. But it was a big mistake. Obama didn't want him, and the head of your country, the proud head of your country, didn't want him. This was a big mistake. You wouldn't have that war. You know, you have your enemy at the table. Even I don't even consider him. He wasn't really an enemy at that time. There was no concept. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But likewise, if he were a member of what was called the G8 at that time, it was always the G8, you wouldn't have a war right now.
Why not have China? And what intelligence support are you providing Israel?
We've always supported Israel. We have for a long period of time, strongly. And Israel's doing very well right now.
Why not have China at the G8? Why not have China here, the biggest economy in the world after the United States?
Well, it's not a bad idea. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest. But you want to have people that you can talk to. You know, they don't talk. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8, as I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted. And, I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced one or two people, along with Obama. He was thrown out, and he's not a happy person about it, I can tell you that. He basically doesn't even speak to the people that threw him out, and I agree with him.
On immigration, why are you ordering ICE to target Democratic inner cities? What's behind that?
I don't know what you're saying.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democrats.
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities, because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York, I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals, and you know, New York and LA, look at LA. LA, those people weren't from LA, they weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And
Okay, I'm going to stop that there because right now, if you're looking at Prime Minister Carney, right, you see the expression on his face has changed. Right now, he looks concerned because he's knowing what's happening here is that all the journalists want to ask him about the raids and all that kind of stuff that's happening down there, rather than asking about the G20, or sorry, the G7. I should say, I keep on calling it the G20 because of all the guests. But instead of asking about the G7, instead of asking about Canada trade, the first two questions were about Canada trade, and I noticed here in the chat that those two questions didn't show. So I will show them later once we're done with this part, because there's more to talk about in terms of what's going on with the G7. So don't worry, kids, you won't miss out. I will show them again. But in this case here, the Prime Minister is realizing that the focus of the questions are no longer about what's going on in Canada, but about him and his issues in the United States and globally. And this is probably not the line of questioning with which he's the most comfortable, and probably not the line of questioning that, if it doesn't stop at some point, does not set up the next discussion that's going to happen very well. Because if he goes into that meeting really, really upset with the manner in which the press has handled him here, that's not conducive to good negotiations. So, and these questions are hard, right? Because they're not questions from American journalists, they're questions from Canadian journalists. And like I said, Carolyn Levitt is not there to run interference. So this is probably the toughest line of questioning that he's received from media on any of the stuff that's gone on since last Thursday. And as you can tell, President's not handling it particularly well. So let's see what happens.
yeah, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to.
Okay, he's drowning right now. He is drowning. Now he's going into the racist shit and all that kind of stuff. He's drowning.
Happen.
Mr. President, you said it would take 2 weeks to decide if
Thank you. If you don't mind, just I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So, alors merci beaucoup pour vos questions.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much. Out.
Okay, and did you see Trump during that time? He's just standing there like he's dead weight. Listless. Again, low energy. The man was drowning. And the Prime Minister knew that that was going to affect the decisions to come. the Prime Minister swept in and saved a drowning man. You can bet that the Prime Minister, at some point in these negotiations or in those talks, found a way to extract a price for that. So when you have these people talking about it was elbows down and on your knees. Prime Minister did what he needed to do to ensure that the meeting that was going to take place after this would go smoothly. And what better way than coming in and say, well, I'm going to exercise my authority as chair of the G7, and we need a couple of more minutes before to chat before we go into that room and prepare. So we will do this now. Thank you. You all have to leave now. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Yes, he jumped in to save the G7 meeting. And I'm sure, like I said, that will have been noticed by everyone on the American side. And it's one more feather in our cap, because if we do not look, the thing with this Prime Minister, I think he has realized that attempting to embarrass Donald Trump in public is probably not a good idea. Now, for those of us at home who can't stand Donald Trump and would just really love to see some Canadians just hip check him into the boards really hard, this is not satisfying, because, oh my God, were there opportunities to just slap him across the face. But you want to create the winning conditions for a successful negotiation, particularly on trade and defense. And I'm pretty sure you do not achieve that by making the mad mercurial mango of Mar-a-Lago feel small or humiliated or laughed at or put upon by the press. Prime Minister has an overhead view of what's going on, and you to pull back, because had the scrum continued to go on, right, you know what other questions were coming next, right? The questions about the shootings in Minnesota. And don't you think you contributed to that with your rhetoric and what? And if that had gotten there, the conference would have been completely upended. And that talk about an accelerated deal, accelerated talks that a deal is coming, maybe soon, that would not have been the discussion with the ambassador. Would have had a completely different tone, completely, totally different tone. So yeah, that was some rather masterful stick handling by the Prime Minister of Canada in that instance. Now, kids and cubs, I am going to make sure, like I said, that we get the actual first two questions as well for you. So we're talking here now that potentially over the next 30 days or so, there could be something concrete in terms of economic trade that might be able to be announced. So we didn't get an announcement this particular time that there was something, but we did get an announcement that, hey, we now have a timeline. It may be 30 days. That is something that is very, very useful. And that's a big development. All right, kids and cubs, I will bring you questions that were missed. And apologies, I saw some of the comments in the chat, and yes, because normally when I have Mr. Grizzly here, we're two, and one of us can do a little production while the other one talks. And of course, I'm on my own today, so I'm trying to juggle the chat with all the other stuff at the same time. So yes, sometimes the chat comes in delayed, and that's why I did not see that at the time, because of course I was on the other screen and trying to follow the discussion again so that I can bring you details. And so unfortunately, only two eyes and one set of hands. This obviously does go a little more smoothly when Mr. Grizzly is there, and I definitely thank you for your patience and your indulgence. All right, so the first two questions, one by Tonda McCharles from the Toronto Star, sorry, and then Katie Simpson, who is the reporter from CBC that is assigned to the United States file.
What is holding up a deal with Canada from your perspective?
It's not so much holding up. I think we have different concepts. I have a tariff concept, and Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person. I've always been a tariff. It's simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good. So we're going to look at both, and we're going to see what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
Mr. President, do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure.
Mr. President, Israel and Iran, have you heard any signals or seen any messages from?
All right. So those were the first two questions there, kids. As you can see, the president making it very clear that, hey, things are going so well that something might be achievable within the next few days, next few days or weeks. Like I said, and then we heard later on that, it's like within 30 days, they think that they might have something. So that's very, very positive. And then, of course, you will notice there again, when he was talking about, tariffs, and that's my position. My position is tariffs. But Mark also has a position. And it's okay too, right? It's more complicated than mine, but, there could be some good out of it. This is something that the United States has never actually said about us. Remember, like, we're nasty negotiators, and we're terrible, and we're the worst. We're just the absolute worst. All of a sudden, it's like, well, there's my ideas, and I like it because it's clear and simple. His ideas are a little more complex, but they're not bad ideas. And as I mentioned, kind of feeds into my thought or my hypothesis that the Prime Minister might be indeed showing the President of the United States and so and the entire Team Canada negotiating team that there are ways maybe to achieve what his ultimate outcome would be in terms of whatever he wants to do for the United States without necessarily having to go out of his way to harm other people. And as a central banker with a lot of experience, I can show you the way, if you would like. And perhaps even, as I mentioned, let Trump take credit for having come up with the idea himself. Because if you remember, as Mark Carney said at one point, I'm not here to be something, I'm here to do something. When you're not there to be something and you're there to do, it becomes a little easier to not want to jump into the spotlight at every single opportunity. It's easier to let a couple things slide. It's easier to pick your moments. It's easier to be more strategic about when you intervene and to have brevity of words actually be an asset. So yeah, indeed. But you can see the stick handling there that the Prime Minister did. When he chose to speak, what he chose to let go, when he chose to intervene. And then at the end, saving an obviously drowning man that didn't have a lot of energy to fight. Well, it would seem that when he left, because of escalating violence in the Middle East, which overshadowed, pretty much a lot of things that were going on the G7, he announced that he would be leaving the Leaders Summit early because of the crisis in Israel and Iran. The abrupt plan to depart was announced by White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt on social media. Unlike Trump's early departure at the last G7 summit hosted in Canada 7 years ago, he did not storm out in a huff. Quote, President Trump had a great day at the G7, even signing a major trade deal with the United Kingdom. Fact check. And Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Leavitt said. Much was accomplished, but because of what's going on in the Middle East, President Trump is leaving tonight after dinner with heads of state. Carney's office confirmed talks took place at the summit on a possible statement on Israel and Iran, but would not disclose the nature of the discussions. American media outlets, including CNN, reported Trump pushed back on signing such a statement. The Canadian press could not confirm that report. Stefan Cornelius, a spokesperson for the German government, told media at the summit that Trump and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz spoke about the Middle East. On the potential for a joint statement on the Middle East, he said, quote, the goal might be to have a joint declaration by the G7 here, because that would serve as a purpose that would unfold some impact. We'll see in the end. It'll be up to the American side to decide whether we're going to have a G7 statement on the Middle East or not. In social media post, Trump called for the immediate evacuation of the Iranian capital of Tehran and warned Tehran needed to curb its nuclear program before it's, quote, too late. He said Iranian leaders would, quote, like to talk, but they had 60 days to reach an agreement on their nuclear ambitions and failed to do so before an Israeli aerial assault began 4 days ago. So a lot of the reporting there as well comes from Dylan Robertson of the Canadian Press that I used for this section here. But yeah, overall, what's to come with Iran and the Middle East and with the United States involvement or whatnot can be things that shake the world. But for specifically this G7 summit and what's happened there, this really could not have gone any better for Canada. And for the United States, for Carolyn Leavitt, who probably hasn't met a lie she's not willing to tell, for her to say that Trump had a great day at the G7. We'll take that. As Team Canada, we'll take that. If the United States thinks he had a great day, who are we to interrupt? And what purpose would it serve? So, whatever magic the Prime Minister seems to have with this President of the United States, it seems to still be effective at this moment. Not sure how long it will last, but for the moment, it still seems to be effective. All right. Because we must. Let's talk about Pierre a little bit here. According to Stephanie Levitz of the Globe and Mail, Conservative Party members will vote in January on whether Pierre Poilievre should remain as leader after his party failed to win April's election. The vote will take place in Calgary, the party's National Council determined during a meeting Saturday, 3 sources told the Globe and Mail. Some within the Conservative Party were suggesting a March convention, but 2 of the sources told the Globe that Mr. Poilievre wanted to have the leadership vote sooner. Gee, I wonder why. No firm date for the vote has been established, but the party is targeting the last week in January for the event. Calgary was chosen, allegedly, because it could accommodate the event, the sources said. Yes, because no other city in the entire country could accommodate an event in January, when spaces are dying for events post-Christmas. Just trying to frame it like, we looked around at many places, but Calgary was the one that could accommodate the event, so we chose Calgary. No, that's not why you chose Calgary. You chose Calgary because it was safe. It was safe. It was safe. Just like he thinks Battle River Crowfoot is safe. Because Kirk won it with 82%, technically 81.8, but whatever. And they're moving it up early because if he gets back in the House in September, and let's say he has a good run from September to the Christmas break, and generates a couple of positive clippings and whatnot, and managed to pull up his sagging numbers, particularly his personal numbers, the party is also being affected. His personal numbers, as we've been reporting, are just atrocious. He's like 26% behind Mark Carney as a preferred leader. It's not good. And it's been starting to show in the polls as well. Now, the overall vote projection from 338 Canada, it doesn't show so much. It is starting to show a little, but it doesn't show so much. But at the election, it was 44-41, and it's still 44-41. But it's like in margin, there's a bit of an opening of a gap that is starting. If you're looking at the polls, if you're looking at the trend lines, now if you're looking at the actual federal polls themselves, a lot of them are all over the place, of course, but some of them are indicating some very interesting things. And I will soon after the election, the Liberals won by 2.5% popular vote. And then if you're looking all the way up until end of May, until about May 28th, all the polls are showing Liberals +2, +1, +3. Then we get to May 30th, and Nanos shows a Liberals +6. On June 1st, Ecos shows Liberals +12. Abacus shows Liberals +3, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 2 points more than their previous one. And Abacus was one of the last ones in the election to sort of show that there was a gap widening. Nanos has been out 2 more times on the 6th and the 13th, and are showing Liberals +10 and Liberals +12. So Nanos itself had on May 23rd, Liberals +1. May 30th, 1 week later, Liberals +6. June 6th, 1 week after that, Liberals +10. And then 1 week after that, Liberals +12. This is not going in the right direction for Pierre or his party. So, yeah, I could understand why he would want a vote sooner rather than later on this. Because right now, Pierre's plan is that he will be winning that, and then he will get back in the House, and then everything will be normal. We'll just bounce back. But the world has moved on from him a little bit since then. So right now, it's not looking good for him at all. And yeah. The Globe is not identifying the sources as they were not authorized to publicly discuss National Council decisions. A spokesperson for the Conservative Party also declined to comment. Wow, that's a sign that you're really confident and excited about this. The Conservative Party's constitution states that at the first national convention after an election the party doesn't win, if the leader hasn't resigned, quote, the delegates will vote by secret ballot if they wish to engage the leadership selection process. Though the Conservatives have failed to win in the past 4 elections, this will be the party's first leadership review since 2004, when then leader Stephen Harper won handily. Neither of his replacements, Andrew Scheer or Aaron O'Toole, remained in their positions long enough after the 2019 or 2021 elections to face party membership. Some Conservatives say the collapse of the NDP vote is the reason they failed to defeat the Liberals. Others have said the campaign didn't adjust when it became clear the stakes were changing. They're not admitting reality here. Quote, we didn't pivot quickly enough, Conservative MP Brad Viss told the podcast Bigger Than Me earlier this month. Quote, we were rightfully focused on cost of living issues, on changes that we need to see in the criminal code, but we didn't speak enough about the challenges that Donald Trump raised before and during the election in a quick enough manner that Canadians thought we were the best party to govern the country. And, well, media is starting to get in on the game and is starting to trash Polyev. There's an editorial in the Globe and Mail from Lawrence Martin titled, Post Mulroney, the Conservatives' brand is loser. It's time for an overhaul. And you have Robin Urbach. Mark Carney's early moves are making the Conservatives look like water boys. I'm sure those are not the narratives that the Conservatives want in that noted liberal rag, the Globe and Mail. Things not going well for him. At all. At all. If you are looking at what's going on the political schedule today, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne will head to the Senate to field questions on his government's plan to lower the marginal tax rate on the lowest income bracket, temporarily offer a GST rebate to first-time homebuyers, and eliminate the consumer carbon tax from the federal pollution pricing laws, which are currently working their way through the House of Commons and are also expected to be approved before the summer recess. So this is obviously work that is, as we mentioned, the questioning by the committee of the whole of the Senate on the floor of the Senate, and all the senators will be asking questions. And of course, a lot of information that's given there will probably then make its way to the Finance Committee itself, which Karina Gould is the chair of now. Elizabeth May and both Leah Gazan and Monsieur Bouliris, Alexandre Bouliris from the NDP, both had their press conferences yesterday denouncing what is going on with that. And to the comment by Robin Urbach about the Conservatives being water boys, it seems that the Conservatives and the Liberals are agreeing on fast-tracking this bill. But the NDP and the Bloc and the Greens are not particularly keen on it, would like a little more study and review. So, which also only makes the Conservatives look like water boys. I believe one of the comments I heard is Conservatives going like, well, we like what you're doing, we just want you to do more of it. Which is probably not a good strategy to try to distinguish yourself from the Liberals if you want to make the case, right? If you're saying like this, we oppose this government, we want it to do more of what it's doing. Probably not making a good case for yourself as a party. So yeah, the Conservatives are in trouble at the moment here. Back in Ottawa, the minority Liberal government's pitch to create one Canadian economy by eliminating federal barriers to interprovincial free trade and accelerating the approval process for projects designated as being in the national interest is officially on the legislative fast track and is now poised to proceed to its House-assigned lightning round review at the Transport Infrastructure and Communities Committee this afternoon. That will start around 3:30 p.m. If there are people that are interested in that. It will probably be broadcast on CPAC. As chronicled by iPolitics yesterday, with the rare but not unprecedented support of the Conservatives, the government's bid to get the bill through a final third reading vote before the House of Commons is due to shut down for the summer later this week and was adopted last night. As under the parameters established by the motion, which is worth noting, was vigorously opposed by the Bloc Québécois, New Democrats, and Lone Green MP Elizabeth May. The committee will spend 2 hours going through the fine print of the proposed legislation this afternoon, with a second and final session slated for Wednesday, when the committee will have until midnight to wrap up its work on the bill, including dealing with any amendments put forward during the clause-by-clause review. So that's a little bit more detail to what I was mentioning earlier about the opposition. Later this afternoon, New Democrat MP Leah Gazan will join representatives of the Chiefs of Ontario to raise concerns over the bill, which has come under sustained criticism from First Nations and Indigenous groups, environmental advocates, and others who have sounded the alarm over both the contents of the legislation and the push by the government to speed it through parliamentary process with minimal security. That'll be around 3:30 Eastern Time as well. When the chamber reopens for business later this morning, the Conservatives are set to devote their party's final designated opposition day on the spring supply cycle to a non-binding motion that calls on the government to, quote, immediately end their ban on gas-powered vehicles, which it asserts, quote, will force Canadians to buy electric vehicles and drive up the cost of vehicles by $20,000. Apparently, this is the big Conservative priority, making sure that auto retailers can still sell cars that run on gas past 2035, I guess. Again, what a waste of an opposition day. The Conservatives are rudderless here. The debate will get underway this morning, continue through the day, and ultimately go to a vote, which, as per standard parliamentary protocols, will trigger a series of make-or-break votes on the main and supplementary estimates that could take place as early as tonight. According to the notice paper, both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois have filed the necessary procedural paperwork to force a combined total of 5 standalone votes on a handful of individual line item expenditures, after which MPs will collectively decide whether to approve the rest of the billions of dollars in proposed spending. All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Federal Privacy Commissioner Philippe Dufresne teams up with his United Kingdom counterpart John Edwards to go over the results of a joint investigation into a global data breach at direct-to-consumer genetic testing company 23andMe. So if you've ever done a test with 23andMe, like I said, there was some big breaches, and your personal information might be compromised. And when you consider that your personal information is your DNA here, that's a really big deal. This investigation was launched last year after the California-based company, which has since filed for bankruptcy, revealed that the personal data of millions of users may have been compromised by unauthorized access by unidentified threat actors. For those who are interested in the official languages file, the official languages commissioner, Raymond Théberge, will host a Zoom briefing to go through his latest annual report, which is due to be tabled in the House of Commons this morning at 10:30. Other little news before we go, kids and cubs, I mentioned it a little bit yesterday, what was going on in Poland. And it seems here that Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government survived a confidence vote in Parliament on Wednesday, shoring up its mandate after the nationalist opposition's victory in Poland's presidential election deepened political gridlock and raised doubts about Tusk's ability to deliver on key reforms. Lawmakers voted 243 to 210 in favor of the government in the 400-seat Sejm, the lower house, with supporters rising to applaud Tusk and chant his name. Tusk had requested the vote, saying Poland is in a new reality and that he was seeking a fresh opening following the June 1st loss of Warsaw Mayor Rafał, I think that's Trzaskowski, but if I pronounce that wrong, I'm sorry, his close ally to nationalist historian Karol Nawrocki. Backed by President Donald Trump, Nawrocki is set to replace Andrzej Duda, another conservative who repeatedly blocked Tusk's reforms efforts. Quote, "I'm asking for a vote of confidence with the full conviction that we have a mandate to govern, to take full responsibility for what is happening in Poland," Tusk said earlier in the day, and he got it. So in Poland, most of the power in the parliamentary system rests with the elected parliament and a government chosen by the parliament. However, the president can veto legislation and represents the country abroad. So there you go. So that's and of course, in this case here, the president is the person that's a little more to the right, and Donald Tusk is the leader of the actual government. So in this case, the way that things played out are actually the best possible result given the conditions for continued support in Ukraine. So at least we can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief there. With regard to the Minnesota shooting, it seems that the suspect involved, had made 4 stops at 4 houses, so there could have been much more carnage. He was spotted at one before he could do whatever it is he wanted to do, and at the other one, the people he had come to assassinate were not home. He had his first appearance in court. He was charged, I think 6 different charges involving stalking and firearms offenses, and of course, murder or attempted murder, and will continue to be detained until for the foreseeable future, I'm guessing. Yes, and we have one particular U.S. senator. His name is Mike Lee, who posted a tweet that he has not taken down yet, basically of the suspect in that sort of like latex mask he had on, basically suggesting that the people who got shot and died deserved it and had it coming because they were allegedly Marxists, which they were not. But even if they were, nobody deserves to be assassinated. So you have some people glorifying the violence there. Elected official. Yeah, not great. Not great. Finally, in British Columbia, the leader of the Conservative Party there, John Rustad, came out yesterday to try to get ahead of a story and maybe did not think it through. This is according to Wolfgang Deppner of the Canadian Press. British Columbia Conservative leader John Rustad is accusing a group of legislators who split from the party of blackmailing its members and staff in a bid to take over and divide the opposition. Rustad has confirmed the authenticity of a letter obtained by the Canadian Press in which he tells the Conservative caucus that their former colleagues and staff are threatening to release blackmail materials, including secret phone recordings and text messages. Rustad's letter says the targets are being blackmailed to get them to take jobs or contracts with the former Conservatives or to, quote, do or say certain things if they want to prevent the materials being leaked. The letter says one unnamed staffer with the former Conservatives called, quote, multiple individuals in order to explicitly blackmail them. And Rustad says in an interview that they're still deciding whether to contact the RCMP. Rustad does not name the former Conservatives, but Dallas Brody, who was ejected from the caucus in January, says the letter consists of, quote, wild lies and baseless false and defamatory accusations about her new 1BC party. 1BC member Tara Armstrong, says she won't comment beyond the statement that Brody issued, while former Conservative Jordan Keeley, who didn't join 1BC, says he has no involvement in the alleged blackmail. Brody and Armstrong launched 1BC last week, and if you are on Twitter and see Dallas Brody's tweets, she is a piece of work, and she definitely has no love whatsoever for Indigenous people. Brody's departure from the BC Conservative caucus came over her controversial remarks about residential schools. There you go, prompting Keeley and Armstrong to quit the party in sympathy. So the thing here is that what John Rustad did not think of when he came out and made this statement is that by trying to get ahead of it by saying, hey, somebody's going to try and blackmail us with these stuff, is that he's also admitting that there is stuff in those texts and phone calls that are of the nature such that one could use it effectively to blackmail. Well, now I'm very interested in knowing on what that stuff is now. Right? Interesting, Mr. Rustad. Interesting. All right. Also speaking about Conservatives not behaving greatly when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, it seems that one of Pierre Poilievre's first priorities, rather than going to Battle River Crowfoot and knocking on doors, was to place personal phone calls to people like Cat Canada and all those online influencers to thank them for their hard work. Why would he do that? I thought he was going to go and change and get away from that, but he's calling the influencers personally to thank them for their hard work, and they're bragging about it online, which is raising some speculation. Hard work that they were paid for by the Conservative Party to do? And how does Pierre have their numbers to call them if they've not been working very closely together? That this isn't actually some type of grassroots kind of thing. Sometimes people tell on themselves when they take certain actions. It seems also that Pierre, the post-mortem for the election, Pierre is apparently conducting it himself rather than taking somebody from that he trusts to do the work, but also trusts to tell him some real truth, maybe some he doesn't want to hear based on what they find out. But he's calling himself and asking, hey, how do you think I did? And given he's still leader of the party, that's not particularly conducive to getting honesty and candor. Now, is it? Particularly if he comes across as somebody that does not like to hear negative things said about himself or being told how he could do better. So yeah, he's not setting himself up. And he's not setting the party up at the moment to do better. The defeated leader especially when they lost not only the election but their own seat, should not be the one conducting the postmortem at all. I do not know what that party is thinking, but they are a hot mess right now. Oh boy, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And as you can tell by the amount of light that has come in, the sun has popped up from behind the clouds there. And I was looking a little washed out. Hopefully that improves things a little bit here. There you go. As we enter the show. If you do not want to miss an episode, because, you're on the go, you're doing stuff, you're being an active member of your community, and sometimes you don't have time to sit here and listen to us. Well, we are portable. Yes, we have an ears-only version of our show, podcast, that you can take with you. So if you're on a jog, or if you're cooking, or if you're on your way to a protest or to go do some community good, you can have us keep you company on the way there. And the way that you do that is by going to our pod page. Thanks to the Ray Girl, of course, for sponsoring it. It means the world to us. But podpage.com/the-true-northeagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. You go there, you click subscribe. When we have something fresh off the bandwidth, zip directly to you. That's it. Your favorite podcast feed, it's there waiting for you whenever you're ready. It's that simple. So thanks so much. And if you happen to be listening to give us some stars or reviews, please do, because that really helps us with the algorithm. Thank you so much. If you would like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, well, hey, I know for a fact that Kits Elaine and Kit Cassie would definitely be beckoning you to surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have 3 buttons for you, like, share, and subscribe, for you to click and get frisky with. When you do it, give them a little tickle. Hey, that too helps us with the algorithm, and it makes us very happy when you do. So thanks, eh? If you would like to help us in yet other ways, kids and cubs, well, it turns out that we have something called a coffee page where you can find the tip jar, or as we call it, the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge. So if you like what we do and you would like to encourage us to do a little more, well, hey, we would appreciate such encouragement. Such encouragement as shown by Kit Melanie, who yesterday wrote to us and dropped a little expression of enthusiasm and encouragement into our tips jar, saying, "Greatly appreciate the True North Eager Beaver podcast. Over the past 6 weeks while in Ontario, I was able to watch live and participate occasionally in the chat. True North Eager Beaver helps keep me sane despite personal and worldwide disruptions and disturbances going on. Here's to many more seasons. Keep up the good work. Your Alberta friend." Yes, we love having Alberta friends. Kit Melanie. Thank you so very much for that nice contribution. Do believe us when we say it will be put to good use, and we absolutely appreciate you having made that donation. Thank you so many times over. We also, of course, have had some support from other kids and cubs, which I would like to bring up and tell you about. But unfortunately, the computer is being slightly cantankerous at the moment and not allowing me to draw it up. So hopefully I will be able to bring it to you in another episode, or maybe it will come in time for the after the extra credits, and I can include it in the Easter egg, because I would really like to thank those who have made some donations, because without you, we cannot do what we do. So thank you, everyone, for your generous donations. Now, if you are not able to make a financial donation, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And we love to hear from you, so please write to us, and you do. We get your emails. Thank you so much. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. Let us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly, or if you have some story suggestions, guest suggestions for interviews and that type of thing. We appreciate everything. So thank you so much. It's your show too. So please let us know what you like. We appreciate it. Now, if you are still doing the Buy Canada thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com also happens to be the email address to which you can send us a direct donation bypassing the US CE Tech Pros. And the bonus there is that we do get 100% of your donation. There's no middleman to take a cut. And the donation is, of course, a 100% Canadian transaction. So thank you so much for those of you who do make a donation in that way. If you would like to reach us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, which is our original home, or here on YouTube if you happen to be listening live with the damn fam, or on your own time, drop us a note in the comment section. Let us know what you think. We love seeing you there popping in to say hello. Thank you so much for when you do that. And to the kits and cubs, we've reached a milestone yesterday as we talked about it. I thought it might take a day or two, but it happened soon after the show. True North Eager Beaver Media has now officially crossed 600,000 views since we started on July 1st, 2022. That's all because of you. We are so grateful. Thank you. Let's keep going. Here's to 1 million, right? Why not? Let's dream big. All right, kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do, remember we have some by-elections coming up in Alberta, 3 provincial by-elections. Do make sure if you are able to vote in those, that you do, and that you encourage family members and friends as well, because friends don't allow friends to do democracy alone. I believe the date is June 23rd, so it's coming up. Plan your vote, and maybe even early voting is already underway there. I would have to look that up. Hopefully I will have a chance to do that and bring you that information tomorrow, if it is indeed started already. I would suspect so. But please go out and cast your votes. Of course, the leader of the Alberta NDP, Naheed Nenshi, is running in one of those 3 by-elections and trying to get his seat into the legislature, where he can hopefully be more effective at this point in taking on Danielle Smith. It does seem that there's polling-wise that there might be the starting of some movement between a little uptick for the NDP and a little downtick for the UCP, given what's going on. That would be really, really nice if that trend could continue and start to grow once Mr. Nenshi does actually have a seat in the legislature. So please do go out and vote. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. I would say, in this case, you know, if you happen to be going through a little bit of more of a difficult time, as is the case for me at the moment, try to not let the really good moments of the day just go by without taking a moment to appreciate them. On days when things are a little tougher, at least having the ability to not be ruminating about them so much that when you spot something lovely, like yesterday for us, it was our peonies. Um, uh, our third batch of another batch of peonies started having some blooms. So now we have blooms on a few of them. And we have some white ones and some red ones and some pink ones. And each one of them has a very distinctive, different odor. And one is a darker and danker. One is more sweet. And the other one is definitely much more, for lack of a better word, perfumey. But each one of them is delightful in their own way. And yesterday, after going out for a little dinner, we came back and we took some time before going into the house to stop and smell the flowers and enjoy the fact that they turned out really well this year, our peony bushes, and to be proud of ourselves. So it was a little moment, and it was just a little bit of communing with nature and just a little bit of moment of appreciation of beauty. Sometimes in a rough day, just taking the time to still find some ways to enjoy life and all the beauty in it can do you a world of good. So there, take some time to smell the flowers or just notice some beauty. Or if you see a child playing, whatnot like this, or a puppy that you like, rather than just walk by, puppy, give it a smile, let it into your heart. That can always help make a rough day be a little softer. All right, kids and cubs, please be kind to and gentle with yourself. and I'll be back with a little bit of an Easter egg. But before that, I need to hear you. Audience participation. All together now. Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. Somebody in there was really enthusiastic. A little extra volume there. Okay, since you asked. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. There, just a little note for those who are watching live. There was a QR code that came up for a merch store for us. We don't have a merch store, so that was back in the days when we were attempting to have one, and it didn't really work out because we were doing it on Etsy, and so yeah, don't scan that. There's nothing there. Not sure how that popped up. A little bit of news about Canadians who make us proud. Recently, we talked about the AmeriCup Under-16 boys basketball tournament, for which Team Canada won the silver medal. While now this is on for the women Under-16 Basketball America's Championship, and first match was between Canada and Colombia yesterday, and Canada won handily 63-29. For those who like tennis, there was Mr. Diallo who won that tournament in the Netherlands, but we also had a couple of other players do very, very well. Rebecca Marino was a finalist at a tournament in Ilkley in the UK, I believe. So, and we also had Dasha Plekhanova, who was a finalist at an event in Decatur. So we had 3 Canadians in the finals after a tournament, and one was able to convert in terms of Gabriel Diallo, but still being a finalist is a pretty good achievement. Also of interest for those who like Felix Auger-Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov, they used to do it more in juniors. They very rarely do it as professionals, but they are playing doubles together at a tournament in Halle in Germany. It's also a grass court tournament, so maybe trying to fit in some extra games matches, because they've been in a little bit of a rut on clay, at least to start the new season, the very short season on grass. But they are playing doubles, and fingers crossed that they would enter Wimbledon as a doubles team as well, because that would be really fantastic to see them. But they did win their first match in their first round, and they will be playing again today. So it's really, I think they're playing in singles today, each individually. But it's nice to see them working together again, playing doubles, because they actually are a pretty good team when they play together. They've been their whole junior career, they played doubles together as well. But often when you get to the higher ranks, you start playing less doubles to focus on your singles games, because, adding those extra matches adds miles on the legs. And if you're going deep into a tournament in singles, you want to have fresh legs. So, but it's really nice to see them playing some doubles here, because, number one, it's just fun. But number two, also improving your net skills and all that kind of stuff. So it's just nice to see Canadians team up, especially when they're both high level. So for those who like good doubles tennis, you might have a little bit of a treat there, especially if they do come and play at Wimbledon. And I believe I do have the coffee announcements for you. So a big thank you to Kit Katie, who sent us a lovely donation and said, "Thanks, love the podcast, much love," with a heart sent there for us. So thank you so very much for your donation. Really, really appreciate it. And we also had some love from Kit Chris, who also sent us a little poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. and this is for you to help you do what you do. So, uh, who said romance and chivalry were dead? Thank you so much, kids and cubs, for all the love. And now, go on and have a most beaverific day. All right. Oh, by the way, programming note. Tomorrow, if everything goes well, we will have an interview for you. It's a little bit different for us because it's not the type of subject that we typically indulge in. But, we often like to talk to Canadians who make us proud. And we decided, we stumbled upon someone online uh, who has an interesting pursuit. And we asked her if she would join us. And she said yes instantaneously. So tomorrow, if all goes well, because she is living in British Columbia and has agreed to join us live. So she will be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I told her, you do not have to do this. We can pre-record, but it seems that she was quite okay with it. We will have an interview with Miss Kamila Mihalik. And if you do not know who that is, she is someone who is going to be a contestant in the Miss Universe Canada 2025 pageant that will be taking place in Windsor, I believe, August 7th to August 9th. The current title is held by Ashley Collingbull, who we've talked a lot about on the show. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about the pageant system and perhaps how it's evolved and what it is that it takes to make your way in that type of world. It should be a fascinating and interesting conversation with the contestant. She has competed in the contest before, I believe, so I think she's returning. But yeah, it will be interesting. We've been having some conversation, some chat pre-interview, and it seems that she is a lovely and delightful person with a sense of humor. And she's very excited about the opportunity. Of course, Miss Universe contestants also, have some humanitarian work to do and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be able to talk about that. But yeah, not so much political as probably more cultural. But we were able to convince her, I guess would be the word, or persuade her to join us. And she has agreed. And so far, our interactions have been completely lovely. So I'm hoping for a lovely discussion where we can learn about a world that we maybe don't know a lot about and maybe have a lot of misconceptions about as well. So I hope that you will join us for that. All right, kids and cubs, I'm off. Have a great day. Let's see. There we go.